My name is Brandon Podgorski. I'm an associate professor of sport management here at Trine University. I'm also director of the Trine Center for Sports Studies. And in my sports psychology class this week, we were talking about different types of coaching styles or coaching techniques. And one of the things that we were talking about is being a positive coach or positive coaching, positive reinforcement. And we were talking about the benefits of positive reinforcement and creating a positive environment as a coach, just how it leads to a little bit of better team cohesion, leads to more happiness among the players. It can lead to increased performance, especially as we're looking at youth teams. There's so many great things about being a positive coach. And I had a student ask me, if that's the case, well, how do you explain those coaches who seem to be negative or seem to take a negative style or seem to be really, really fiery and yell at their players? And I thought it was a great question. And it's something that I want to explain here and talk and give a little bit more context to that answer. So if we think back to 2019, to the NCAA men's basketball tournament, and there was a situation there with Michigan State where their head coach, Tom Izzo, was just really yelling at one of their players, Aaron Henry. Something happened during the game, whether he just wasn't playing hard or there was a turnover and there was a timeout, and Aaron Henry comes to the bench and Izzo really rips into him. Right. And on TV, it looked really, really bad. He's really screaming and yelling at him during the timeout. He goes after him again, and some players have to get between them. And it kind of set off a firestorm in sports media. And people were saying that Izzo was a bully and this was a really bad look. But I want to share with you what Aaron Henry had to say about this. He said, it wasn't like he was going at me, but it was almost like he was helping me because I wasn't getting it through my head. I wasn't playing hard. He was just trying to get me to understand it. I can't be mad at him for it. I don't know if he knew I was prepared for it, but I guess he saw I was prepared for it, talking about the screaming. He said, I'm going to accept everything he says because he doesn't want anything for me but the best. And I want to share with you what Tom Izzo said. He said, to me, it was ridiculous the way they blew it up. There's a 10-second soundbite in a 2-year relationship with his player. I just think people don't understand that. In talking about himself, he says, this coach relies on relationships with his players, I think, more than any coach in the country. That's an egotistic or selfish statement, self-proclaimed, but I think it's been earned, and I think it's been talked about. He goes on to say, you've got to appreciate there's a year and a half recruiting. There's a year he's been here now. There's hours and hours and hours spent upon asking his players, what do you want to accomplish? What do you need to do to accomplish that? What do you need to do to help our team to win? If you don't do those things, what do you think my job is? And so the answer that I gave my student is that if you've got a good relationship with your players, you can be a demanding coach. And I think if we were to be put into a Michigan State practice or in the locker room or during a game, I think the amount of positive comments that Tom Izzo says to his players and his teams probably outweighs the negative comments 3-1, 4-1. You know, anything from a, hey, good job, good hustle, pat on the back, high five, fist bump, calling positive comments, to being negative and yelling at them and trying to correct them if we're going to call them negative, right? I think we would probably see there's a lot more positive than there are negative. And you saw that in the quotes there. You know, it seems like Tom Izzo has a really good relationship with his players and he understands them individually. So the advice I would give to coaches or aspiring coaches, especially when we get to the elite level, and I've seen some studies when we're talking about elite athletes, when we get to a certain level, whether it be pro or Olympic, or if we want to say D1, NCAA D1 is considered elite, they just want to get better at this level. Think about pro athletes who have a 3.5, 4.5 year on average career. You know, they don't really have a lot of time for kind of like thinking more, being more worried more about a cohesive environment. I need you to make me the best I can be as fast as possible because I don't have a lot of time to make a whole lot of money. And I think that's what we're seeing here in this particular situation. So what I would say to a coach is that, you know, a positive environment, you're going to get the best out of your players. But if you're going to be demanding, and there's those times where you've got to correct and you've got to be a little bit negative, which isn't totally inappropriate, you need to have a good relationship with your player because they're going to respond better to you. So a coach needs to understand their player well. and have a good individual relationship with each player and know how they can push them. And at the same time, players need to understand that if you've got that good relationship with your coach, it's okay to take some hard coaching from time to time. So that doesn't mean that we use a 100% positive approach, especially if players are doing things that they're not supposed to be doing. And it doesn't mean that we take a 100% negative approach. I think we take a overwhelmingly or at least a significant positive approach. And again, positive doesn't have to mean that everything a player does is the greatest thing in the world, but just kind of being a supportive approach maybe might be a better word. And then use those times for negative reinforcement sparingly, but make sure that when you do it, the player understands you're trying to get them better. You're trying to help them reach their potential. So there's a lot of that context that's hard to explain in just a 5-minute video there, but I thought it was a great question. And I hope that understanding that coaches that have good individual relationships with their players, they've almost kind of earned that right to be a little bit more demanding at times. And I think you'd be surprised to see that players that feel that they have that good relationship with their coach will respond in a positive way. So great question, and hope my answer helped there.